Hello, welcome to this segment, Reclaiming Your Hidden Powers. I'm Dr. Paula Petrie. I'm very happy to be with you today. My background is in special education, that is my PhD, but my presentation, my life learning comes from raising my daughter, Alexandra, who was born with a significant disability. I come to you to talk to you today about how it is that we can reclaim or claim our hidden powers. I know that as a parent of a child with a disability, we can get the rug pulled out from underneath us, not only once but more than once, and we as we come into center and into our own place of power by realizing what it is that we're really up to here. What am I here to do? What am I here to achieve? And my presentation today is about that. I want to see our lives. I worked with this myself and now I'm offering it to you, but to see your life through the lens of the hero's journey. And it is a reframe that helped me move from not so sure what this was all about to very clear what my role was and the significance of my role in the life of my daughter and in the life of many, many other people. And knowing that as I stepped into my own journey of healing, of self empowerment, my daughter benefited. So I bring that to you today. I'm going to pull up some my slides that will take us on a visual journey as well, which is, I think, always nice. So we're going to share the screen and we'll start the slides. There we go. So we say, I love this expression, fall in love and let it teach you about life. I think that's what has happened to us as parents. As we fall in love with our children, it teaches us about life. The hero's journey. And we're going to see through this lens. Dr. Joseph Campbell, historian, theologian, is now deceased, but brought to us this incredible framework in which to understand our own journeys and understand the mythology, the journey of that is found in so many myths, fairy tales, and our religious stories, leaders. As we will see, it is also found in many of our movies. It was a blueprint as he analyzed the um, mythologies across all traditions, spiritual, religious traditions. He found a blueprint. Wow. And he named it The Hero's Journey. And it's now taught in film schools. Joseph Campbell passed away in the 80s, so it's been in film schools for decades now. And we find it in The Wizard of Oz, which we're going to focus on through this presentation. But more than focusing on Dorothy and her pals in the Land of Oz, I want you to find yourself in the story and see what meaning and purpose and understanding of your life comes from that. I also love, right, Lion King. So this is the map. This is what he found everywhere where he looked. The hero is called to an adventure, leaving the known world into an unknown world. And he crosses thresholds as he steps in and through and becomes initiated and then returns to give gifts back what he has learned or she has learned to others. I talk about this in my memoir, A Mother's Courage to Awaken. Check it out in October 2020. It'll be available before that, I'm sure, as well on Amazon. And it is my journey with my daughter, Alexandra, as I founded Parent to Parent of Miami in the early 80s, my own journey in stepping into my own power as I did that for her and for others, I personally have evolved. And I was not medical director, but I was training director at the Mailman Center for Child Development at the University of Miami for 12 years, bringing the understanding of a family's perspective to pediatricians and to other healthcare practitioners. And then I worked for many years on advocacy efforts and accountability specifically. Became my dissertation, which was later in life. I say nothing trumps hope, just keep going, keeps learning, on accountability in early intervention services. But the past 12 years, healing that was spurred with my daughter's death. She was age 12, and that was quite some time ago. But for the past 12 years, I've looked at healing and hope, um, um, self development, personal power, all through the eyes of a holistic health perspective: mind, body, soul, and spirit. So I give great thanks and gratitude for my daughter and my daughter's life, because it brought me all of that richness that would not have been available to me had she not been born. So the call to adventure begins with a departure. The adventure begins in a situation that's normal, like we were going about our business, and then one day, however it was for you, you begin to recognize your child is very different, possibly a birth defect, as in my daughter Alexandra, a diagnosis at age 2 or 3, whatever that moment was. It was all normal, and then it wasn't. But in receiving some information, it acts and calls to head off into the unknown. And here with Dorothy, it's so wonderful of a story, because this is her mean neighbor who came to say that Toto, her wonderful pal dog, was a menace, and that she was going to take Toto away. So Dorothy left the known actually in protection of her beloved Toto. So I think as similarly, right, we leave the known world of typical development, typical children, and everything else that families seem to have when they have kind of normal children, and we go and seek help and protection for our child. So here's parenthood, representing parenthood. I believe all mothers, particularly, but also fathers, are are answering a call to adventure, because we think we know what's ahead of us, but we don't have a clue, which is right. I write much about that in my book. My daughter being born overseas in the Dominican Republic in the 1980s. What was I thinking? Um, so I just had kind of naivete or faith or trust, and also it was set up like that. I feel like that was where it was to begin, and it gave us a choice at that time, actually, whether or not to leave Alex in the hospital, or to die, and or to take her home with us, which I'll talk about in a minute. So parenthood, all mothers need recognition, because all mothers are on a hero's journey and stepping into parenthood, into the unknown world. So it's not unusual that the hero departs, but then decides, maybe this isn't for me, regrets, or I'm sorry, or refuses the call, or tries to refuse the call. So but it converts the current world into a wasteland when we do that. So for Dorothy, if you remember, she stops off on her way. She leaves Kansas. She was an orphan, remember? So she was with her aunt and uncle. And so she's leaving. An orphan child also has like an archetype to it, never feeling quite at home, at peace, belonging. Off she goes, but she finds this kind of the psychic on the way. And he goes, oh, looks in the crystal ball. No, you need to go back. Your Aunt Mamie is very worried about you. So she heads home. She didn't answer the call, but she arrives and a tornado hits. So it's, I think, a great metaphor, and I talk about that in my book, my refusal So we stayed in the Dominican Republic. It was horrendous healthcare conditions, and it was a wasteland. And when we decided to leave, it became like leaving the world of black and white and entering into really the land of Oz of full color. And my whole world opened up. Everything aligned because I was aligned with what was my purpose and mission. Um, and so that refusal could be in, terms and disability. We also often hear denial. I really don't agree with that term. I do believe, though, that we are in shock. Our body just cannot process information, and there is part of us that is in a refusal, right? In that can't believe it. This can't be true. There is a time of refusal. Um, so anyhow, we dig in though, and we have the courage to seek the depths. Here we have the young man setting off onto the adventure into the unknown, and in a deep way, the snake eating its tail, the cycles of life. We delve in, the phoenix arising from ashes. So when we surrender to what is, we die to what we had hoped for, and we allow what is to come forth. It is like the mask that we see in the lower left here, the Aztec mask, where the skull of the dead person opens up, and this beautiful images of rebirthing, and many, many layers under that. We can keep rebirthing. We don't go as parents around the hero's journey one time. We go around it many times, I believe. So find yourself in this story. Recognize how you have sought the courage and to go deep into yourself and into the needs of your child. And the deeper we go into ourself, we go into our child. It's really a process that is um, contemporaneous. It's happening at the same time that we're often unaware of. So, stage 3 of the hero's journey, a supernatural aid comes, and Glenda arrives as Dorothy lands. The house lands on the Wicked Witch of the East, and there's the witch's shoes, and but Glenda comes and says, "Oh, my dear, here, put these shoes on, and they're the amulet. They're a form of protection for you." So that this can form. Actually, I had a spiritual moment when we were in that state of refusal that broke me open. It was just a prayer that ran through me. I just, my whole body lit up, and I got the message through 3 different ways on the same day that it was time to head to the United States for some quality interventive care. So amulets, it arrived to me in the form of a letter, in form of a prayer, and in a form of a mother who knew my situation and gave to me this moment of wisdom. It was a moment of wisdom, of shared wisdom that she had with me. But 3 things in one day. So it comes in many forms. So what form did it come in for you? Also, it can be going forward. So we watch out for, once we know the map, we can be cautious and look for and recognize people that just show up out of the blue and give us a message or information, or become a longtime mentor that we need. Informing Parent to Parent of Miami, I know I saw other people ahead of me as the spiritual supernatural aids, and I became that for many, many people, as well as, of course, all the parents we trained, and it's an ongoing effort in Miami, and all of those serving those families are, I'm sure, seen many times by the families as the mentor, and came out of nowhere, and thank God you're here. So we cross a threshold, and we leave the ordinary world behind. And we enter a world of unknown, unfamiliar rules and values. And for every parent I've met, they said eventually, at some point, their values began to shift and shift and change. What they held was important was no longer, and that was a major benefit of having a gift that came with their child. But in that also, we have to begin to negotiate or navigate an unknown world of disability. There's a language there, there's knowledge, there's an interaction, there's parent professional partnerships that we need to learn how to navigate in order to maximize the resources and services for our children. The spiral you see here in the image is the oldest image. We can go back 40,000 years in rock art representing personal development. And here it is in the land of Oz. Dorothy again arrives in Oz, but then continues on her journey as reflected in the yellow brick road. Not from Dorothy, but the the stage here is Belly of the Whale. So this really fits a story that maybe you're familiar with. A time of a deep reflection. It's a death to the old, and the renewal is possible. Um, the travel is inward rather than outward. And I think a challenge for parents of children with disabilities, and I know it was for me, I spent so much time journeying outward, meeting the needs of my child, and then other people as I formed, parent to parent and worked on advocacy and legislation. I was out in the world, but inside, my inner journey, my inside was was harsh, was drying up, was um, um, well, let me say put it this way: wasn't being cared to. I don't know if that was harsh and dried up. It sounds a little harsh, but we need to learn to travel inward as well as our outward journey with our children, tending to the heart, taking care of oneself. And that is in the belly of the whale. We do that. So the initiation, we come out and we say, okay, along the way, I need to handle things. And we cross that threshold. We cross it maybe at birth with the child, right? But then again at maybe age 5 and the new services. And we're kind of these thresholds appear along our way, transition into adulthood services. Many times there's a new threshold that we need to cross, and we find ourselves kind of back going around this wheel. Tests come in threes, and this is so interesting. So look at how many aspects of Dorothy are there in the story. They also come in three. But if when we, for whatever reason, when bad things, a significant negative thing or challenging thing happens to us, it then comes the next and the next. For Dorothy, it the flying monkeys. Yeah, the Wicked Witch of the West had all kinds of devious things planned for her. And it was on the journey also that she was reclaiming three aspects of herself: her courage, her heart, and her brain. So this is about her journey in reclaiming herself. And that is my memoir. Um, the awaken, the courage to awaken, to find those aspects of ourself. It's not head underneath the pillow. Oh no, here I am. This is my life. It's not what I planned for. And Joseph Campbell has a beautiful quote that says, live the life that you're given, not the one you planned for. Give, live the life you're given. And when we do that, we find ourselves in many trials and tribulations. However, as we work through them, we are polishing our heart and we're gaining our brain back. as I really worked through the emotional morass that was part of my life, uh, through a lot of help from a lot of people, I ended up defending my dissertation. I want to not reveal my name, but I will. At age 55. I started at age 51, 52. Right. Because along the way, I regained my hidden brain, my hidden ability, um, my hidden courage to take risks was there. Yeah. So we find these aspects of ourselves as a gift from our child and a gift from leaving the known and going into the unknown world and aligning with what life has given us. We find the gifts. And then we get tempted away from our quest. That's number 7 in the stages. And there's Dorothy falling asleep. Often we fall asleep along the way. We're not paying attention and we kind of get hit over the head. We get woken up. Pay attention, get back on board. What is it next we have to do? This falling asleep is different, though, than daily self care. Atonement with the Father, this is the most, just such an important part. So remember the wizard, if you, is in so many, is the authority figure that we put all of our faith and trust in. And we may do that with the doctor, we do it with the principal or with the teacher, or many people we can put, oh my gosh, he or she has all the answers for me. And it seems like a scary person. How many times we sat in an IEP meeting, perhaps, and everyone around the table, our boots are shaking, as they say. But when as we reclaim our hidden powers, we learn that we don't defer to authority. We're not rebelling against the authority or just walking out of the room, but we're collaborating. And in this image, it's like atonement with the Father. And in this image, remember that Toto, perhaps Dorothy's unconscious, goes behind and goes, look at everybody, and pulls the curtain back. And there's the wizard. And oh my God, the wizard is fake. He's not who he thought he was. But he was helpful, right? But not scary. And they became one-on-one with him in a way that was very collaborative, let's say, an mutual exchange, a level of honesty that was there, and trust. So the wizard in the atonement, and when we trust that we can trust that the wizard is merciful, then we can come into that place of personal power. And it's a catch-22 because all that work that Dorothy did to get there helped her come to that place of, oh, I can trust you. So you can think about your journey and where you are with that, and how it might be that you do your personal work such that you are in more of a place of personal power and a collaborative without that fear. And we can achieve more. When I sat down, I went through really some tough times, and I write about it with special education services. But that day that I sat down and got exactly what I wanted was only because I had gone through everything I'd gone through up to that point and kept persistent, got training. I was seeing a psychologist, had mentors, because I knew I was just driven to have it what it should be for my daughter, what I felt was correct. And that was a fully integrated program. So do the inner work for the outer to transform into what it is that you need and want. The return can be a refusal, which is interesting because, see, here we see, oh, Dorothy was so sad and leaving, and it is hard to say goodbye. And even she was in the balloon, and so was Toto, ready to take off with a wizard. back to Kansas. But Toto jumps out. It was like Dorothy's unconscious again and goes out of the basket and starts running away, which meant Dorothy had to get out of the balloon. And it was all good because who knew if that wizard was going to get them all back to Kansas or not, right? And he was a little bit of flighty, as you may say. And lo and behold, there's Dorothy, and there's a refusal, and there's an obstacle. So that she's back on that platform or that stage, sobbing or so sad she's not going back to Kansas. And then what happens, right? She gets rescued from without. That means someone outside of herself comes and rescues her. So we may be weakened at that stage in the end. And again, we need additional help to make our way back home. We cross a returning threshold. As we left, we come back and we a crossing threshold as well there. And then we need to integrate everything that we've learned into our daily life. And we can just see that Dorothy's integrating that heart, her courage, her brains. There she is, mulling it all together. And it is the return. And she returns to Kansas. And as we return home, as I know so many of you have, we begin to share our gifts with others. Oh, no, don't do that. Do this. Or this is the person to call. Or maybe you need to take some time out for yourself as we help families tend to their personal emotional needs. So we have been around the hero's journey. It's a circle, a place of wholeness, a place where we come back to ourself in an empowered way. That how we left and how we come back is very different, notably different. I think during this time of the coronavirus, perhaps we could see our whole country is on a hero's journey. We have all left what is to be considered, what we considered to be our normal life. We've had many, many trials and tribulations personally and collectively. Um, there's been, um, along the way, I hope that you have found mentors, you have found the force of light that's come to you in unknown ways. You've learned new things about yourself, about your family. So many times, so many people I've talked to, the silver lining, right? If it weren't for that time with my child, I wouldn't have been able to achieve this and that. Um, so we are all on a hero's journey at this time, and um, it's important to spend some time in the belly of the whale and integrating everything that's happening and reflecting what is happening to oneself personally, knowing that you're being impacted as well from the collective. And some questions you may ask yourself is what brought me here? Maybe here at this moment in time, here with my child, here in this marriage, or just maybe here on this planet Earth. What brought me here? What am I striving for? What could have been my purpose or mission if I had planned this? What would it have been? What am I here to achieve? And then what are you seeking in that? What am I seeking? We did a wonderful wellness summit for Family Cafe just 2 weeks ago, and it's all video archived. And there's 8 sessions that can help you answer these questions and find wellness practices that are current, kind of modern, evidence-based. They're all based on research that I did now 10 years ago on caregiver stress. We know it's real. It's a real phenomena. It actually can, if we're not careful, take years off of our lives. And it is possibly heightened for you right now. So I direct your attention to the Family Cafe Facebook page videos and there's 8 different ones where we did toning, we did emotional freedom technique and tapping, there's drumming, there's expressive arts, things that you can do with your children. So take a look at that. And have you fallen asleep? You know, stay awake even though this time is difficult. We stay awake, meaning we stay aware of what is going on within ourselves and outside of ourselves. We take note of all of that. And if there's a crystal ball for you, yeah, look into it, self reflect, find those hidden powers. What part of yourself did you let go of in raising and taking on the responsibility of a child with special needs? Your fun self, your creative self. I worked with someone recently who was discovering her clown self. She was voted the class clown. Yeah, what happened to the class clown, the funny person, right? And reach out. I answer people's questions all the time. What could I do about this or that, or where do I find resources on wellness and inner peace, reducing stress. I'm also offering a course. It's going to begin in July. Awaken to Action. You will end up with an action plan. It's a beautiful action plan process, one that was developed actually mapping and used many years ago extensively in mapping transition plans for young adults. But we'll do a lot of work before that. So, what's your new North Star? Where are you headed? But before that, we do a lot of self reflection processes. There's course materials you can find that are available, and it's an hour and a half Zoom 1 week, one time a week for 7 weeks. And there's only going to be 15 of us. So check it out. There's scholarships and sliding scale, everything to make it available, accessible. My heart is with you all. I hope you enjoy all of the Family Cafe conference. It's a beautiful family, and we will all be again together next year.